And good morning, or good afternoon, or whatever time of the day it is you're watching this. It's the Old Soldier coming at you today from Robinson County, North Carolina. Uh, like I said last night on my live stream, I apologize for being off grid, if you will, for the last month or so. Just haven't been feeling well. Not the coronavirus, just my chronic fatigue and pain caught up with me, and the change of the weather had an impact, and it's taken me this long to kind of get my batteries recharged and refreshed and get back on topic, back on point. So, last night I stated I was going to do a video today on military funeral honors. And why? There's a lot of misnomers out there as to what military personnel, military retirees, and veterans are entitled to in the way of burial honors, in the way of military honors at a funeral. And I'm going to start with my own experiences. In my Army career, I've participated in numerous funeral details. When I first came in the military, usually a funeral detail would consist of a minimum of 6 pallbearers with an NCOIC for the pallbearer team, because that was also the same team that would be responsible for folding the flag. You had a firing party. The firing party usually consisted of an NCOIC and 7 firers. Okay, and then there was the person who was to present the flag to the next of kin that has to be equal to or above the rank of the deceased. So, case in example, if it's a buck sergeant, 3-striper sergeant for the Army and the Marine Corps, then you have to have a sergeant or higher to present the flag to the next of kin. So forth and so on. If it's a lieutenant colonel, you have to have a lieutenant colonel or higher. Okay. When you get into the general officers category, there's certain things that are done that normally wouldn't be done at a regular funeral per se, depending on the family's request. But the basics, that used to be what was given to anybody that requested military honors for a deceased veteran, military retiree, or an active duty member that passed in the line of duty. Okay. Well, things begin to change in the late 90s to the early 2000s. We had a drawdown in the force. Then the war started back up, or I say started back up. The new wars, if you will, the war in Afghanistan, the second war in Iraq, call them what you will. Middle East cranked back up in 2001, 2006, so forth. After 2001, 9/11. With that, there was an increased demand on manpower to go to combat. That left fewer personnel at home stations to provide these honors for deceased veterans and retirees. So there were policies drafted and put into place that the only people that would get full honors would be military retirees and active duty personnel. Veterans would be regulated to a 2 to 3 person party that would play taps and fold the flag and present next kin. And even then, that got to be where taps was being played on a recorded device. Eventually, they started acquiring bugles with an insert to give the appearance of a real bugler. Because I'll be honest with you, there's not many people that know how to play a bugle anymore. Most bands is played off of a trumpet. But bottom line is that even with the increase of manpower back in the 2000s, they left that policy in effect because they needed more manpower in these combat units, that kind of thing. And the reason I want to mention this, because I get sick and tired of hearing the misnomers when I go to these things, and I hear people that don't know any better. for example, they didn't give my granddaddy a 21 gun salute. There's only 5 guys shooting. That's not 21 guns. Where do you get that from? Well, that's what I've always been told. Oh, okay. There's no such thing as a 21 gun salute at a military funeral. Did you know that? 21 gun salute is a cannonade. It's not a firing party. It's not a firing volley. Okay? That's usually reserved for heads of state, general officers, that kind of thing. And there's different types of gun salutes. Let's see if I can pull it up here and we'll go over those. Gun protocols. So if I get it pull up while we're, there we go. And let's see. Yeah, my good old internet's running slow. Okay, because every nation's got their own version of it. Let's see what the United States says. On November 16, 1776, the West Indian port of St. Eustatius rendered a 9-gun salute for the 13-gun salute given to the U.S. brigantine Andrew Doria. At the time, 9 guns were the customary salute to an independent republic. The first salute was specifically ordered by the Dutch government of the island and marks the first formal international recognition of the United States as an independent republic. The flag flown by the Andrew Doria was the Grand Union flag, 13 alternating red and white stripes with the British flag in the Union. Stars and Stripes received the first salute when John Paul Jones saluted France with 13 guns at Quiberon Bay in 1778. Okay? The practice of firing 1 gun for each state in the Union was not officially authorized until 1810, when the United States Department of War declared the number of rounds fired in the national salute to be equivalent to the number of states, which at the time was 17. The tradition continued until 1841, when it was reduced from 26 to 21. In 1842, the United States declared the 21-gun salute as the presidential salute. While the national salute has been formally established as the 21-gun salute, the current tradition holds that on Independence Day, to be 50 rounds, 1 round for each state in the Union. The salute to the nation is fired at noon on 4th of July on all military or on U.S. military installations. The U.S. Navy recognizes President's Day and Memorial Day with a 21-gun salute at 12 o'clock. In April 1914, during the Mexican Revolution, the Tampico affair occurred and escalated as a result of a 21-gun salute, or more specifically, the lack of one. 9 unarmed U.S. sailors were arrested in Tampico, Mexico, for entering an off-limit area at a fuel loading station. Despite being released, the U.S. naval commander demanded an apology and a 21-gun salute. The apology was provided, but not the salute, giving President Woodrow Wilson reason to order the U.S. occupation of the port of Veracruz. Now, on Memorial Day, batteries on military installations fired 21-gun salute to the nation's fallen. As well, batteries at naval stations and on ships fire a salute of 21-minute guns and display the ensign at half-mast from 8 a.m. until completion of the salute. Today, a 21-gun salute is rendered on the arrival and departure of the President of the United States. It is fired in concordance with 4 ruffles and flourishes, which are immediately followed by hail to the chief. The actual gun salute begins with the first ruffle and flourish, and long run, i.e. the salute concludes after hail to the chief is ended. 21-gun salute is also rendered to former U.S. presidents, foreign heads of state, or members of a reigning royal family, as well as to presidents-elect. And in such a ceremony, the national anthem of the visiting dignitary country is played following the salute. Now, in accordance with standard operating procedure of the 3rd Infantry Old Guard, the various gun salutes are assigned as follows. Each round is a given salute is fired at one at a time. The number of cannon used in a battery depends upon the intervals which each round is fired. This includes, for example, a 3-gun battery firing 2 of its guns with 5-second intervals between rounds and 1 gun remaining at the ready in case one misfires. Such a battery would be used at the Armed Forces Full Honors funeral or the state arrival ceremony of a foreign dignitary at the Tomb of the Unknown in Arlington National Cemetery. A 4-gun battery has its first 3 guns firing rounds at 3-second intervals, with the 4th gun again at the ready in case of a misfire. SOP also provides each gun salute a 2-man gun crew, 1 loader, 1 gunner for each cannon, as well as a 5-man staff of soldiers to give the commands. Staff includes officer in charge, a watchman who marks the intervals and signals each gun to fire, an assistant watchman is the backup, a counter who keeps track of the number of rounds being fired and signals the last round to the officer in charge, and a non-commissioned officer in charge who marches the battery into place as well as signals the backup cannon to fire in case another gun misfires. A gun salute is not to be confused with the 3-volley salute often rendered at military funerals. I didn't mean to bore you with all that off of Wikipedia, but again, it's important to know the difference, because I've seen people get upset because when my granddad didn't get a 21-gun salute, they only had 5 people there shooting their rifles, and they shot only 3 times. Got proper renders, proper honors rendered. I get why they're upset, because they've got this misconception, but again, so to back up the whole thing, now what the military does, at least the Army, I can't speak for the other branches, but the Army, if it's an Army retiree, they will provide an NCOIC, a person of equal or higher rank to present the flag next to kin, a bugler, or a simulated bugler, and a firing party that also serves as the pallbearers. And what they'll do now is they will stack arms at a remote location in the graveyard, cemetery. Then they will march down to the gravesite and wait for the arrival of the hearse. The hearse will arrive. The pallbearers march up. They'll retrieve the casket. They'll march it up to the place of interment, set it down. Then they'll march off and unstack arms and prepare to fire the volley. As the volley is fired, okay, there'll be 3. You'll hear the command: ready, aim, fire! Ready, aim, fire! Ready, aim, fire! And from funeral details, been practicing, because if it's one crisp shot each time, they've been practicing. If it sounds like popcorn, they need some practice. But either way it goes, 3 volleys. That's it. There's no 7 guns firing 3 times for 21. There's no 21 guns firing once. 3 volleys. That's all you get at a military funeral is 3 volleys. Okay, at least here in the U.S. Now I can't speak for other countries how many volleys that they may or may not provide. Okay. Then at that point in time, the firing party march back down. They will fold the flag. But prior to that, the flag will be outstretched over the casket. Taps will be played. As taps being played, the flag, at the end of that, the flag will be folded and presented to the next kin. Now, in a full honor, the firing party will stay in place. They'll go to present arms. Taps will play. Flags folded, presented to the next kin. Okay. Now, in that presentation, the NCOIC, when it gets down to them, they'll inspect the flag and receive it from the pallbearers. They'll inspect it. Normally, traditionally, at that point in time, 3 empty shell casings from the volley that was just fired are placed inside the flag. It's more of a tradition than a requirement. Then the flag again is inspected. It's presented to whoever's going to present to the next of kin. And when that is done, the NCOIC passes the flag over, It's received. NCIC renders a slow hand salute, comes back down. The person that's going to present the flag takes it next to kin. They reach over. They say the traditional acknowledgments on behalf of a grateful nation. Please accept this flag as a token of your loved one's honored and faithful service to this great nation. They come back up. They render a slow hand salute, and then they march off. That is the end of honors. Okay. Now, full honors, like I said, like now, if you go to Arlington, now Arlington's a whole different ballgame in a sense of what's provided. Usually there'll be a caisson party. What's a caisson party? It's a horse-drawn deal where the casket is placed on in civilian terms, it looks like an old buckboard wagon, but it's actually a caisson was traditionally an artillery ammunition carrier back when we had horse-drawn artillery. The casket's secured to the caisson, goes up by horse, pallbearers retrieve it, etc. so forth. Okay, and again, you've got full firing party, full pallbearers. Okay, but like I said, I just wanted to make that clear because all too often people just get this misconception that, hey, my Uncle Joe was supposed to get a 21 gun salute. They only showed up with 4 guys to shoot, and I've got to look into this because it's been quite some time, but if memory serves me correct, for the Army, they have to have a minimum of 5 firers for the firing party, and you can have a maximum of 9, okay? Normally, they'll go with 7, but I've done it with, I want to say, as few as 6. Let me see if I can find the old regulation on that, which, let's see, FM 22-5. Drilling ceremonies from the U.S. Army. That would be where it would be covered at in the Army. Let's see if I can clarify some things for you. And like I said, don't take my word for it. Do your own research too. But for the Army, funeral details are covered under Field Manual, or FM 22-5, drilling ceremonies. Now let's see if I can dig this up. Control F. And we've got types of military funeral divided into 2 following classes: chapel service followed by movement in the grave, and placement local disposition, provide escort, graveside service only. Full military funeral normally consists of the following elements: band, escort. And again, that's the other thing. In Arlington, you might wind up getting a band. Trying to find what the minimum requirement used to state the number of fires that you could have. All right. I also download this FM, folks. It also teaches you how to fold the flag correctly, too. Well, I'm not seeing the number of fires that are authorized. But I know it's no more than 9. But it can be as few as 5 if I'm not mistaken. And again, it's 3 volleys. Not 21 guns, 3 volleys. I forgot how big this manual was. But anyway, I don't have to dig that up. I'll be sitting here reading forever and boring the crap out of y'all in the process. But 3 volleys, not 21 guns, 3 volleys. Okay. And again, the person that presents the flag to the next of kin is supposed to be of equal or higher rank than the deceased. Now, in a lot of cases, now let me back up here too. In a lot of cases too, now, and this started in about the 2000s, the then President George Bush, his administration highly encouraged civic veteran organizations to kind of fill a void that the active military couldn't. So a lot of, case in example, a lot of counties, veterans formed their own veterans funeral details. Many of them, there's one up the road, or here in Robeson County, that adopted wearing active Army uniforms. And that was kind of a few years ago. One of their members showed up at a Lowe's in Fayetteville and was accused of false valor, stolen valor. It wasn't the case. It's just, but long story short, hopefully that particular county's funeral team have made adjustments to clearly distinguish what they are. But VFWs, American Legions, AMVETS, and various other veterans organizations started forming their own honor guards, is what they call them, to provide these services when the active military couldn't. A lot of National Guard units started doing the same thing. I had some friends in the Tennessee National Guard that participated in the Tennessee National Guard's funeral details. Okay. Again, it was to fill a gap that the active military couldn't fill because of manpower and manning. Okay. See, that's the other thing when that first started too. We were having to do dual, providing the firing party and the pallbearers have the same group of individuals. You used to hear that. All these honors are subject to the restraints that the military can provide. I say the restraints are dependent upon the restraints that are put on the active military or the current operational tempo or the resources available within the state that the deceased resides in. And that's a mouthful. And what that is, case in example, if you live in Minnesota and you're retired Army, they may not be able to get an Army firing party to you in a timely manner. Where's the nearest Army base to Minnesota? That's another thing. And it used to be, like here in North Carolina, Fort Bragg covers all of North Carolina for the Army. There was 1 or 2 counties in South Carolina we covered. But I had friends at Fort Sill that covered all of Oklahoma, parts of Arkansas. I want to say they covered parts of Nebraska, I think. And then I knew guys that were at Fort Hood, they covered a good portion of Texas. Again, and each military Army post has a geographic area they're responsible for. That's not counting your other services, the Air Force, the Marines, the Navy, the Coast Guard, and the renders, the services that they can provide. I can remember we did a funeral for a gentleman years ago that was dual service. What I mean by that, he had served in the Navy and he'd served in the Army. So the agreement was made that the Army would provide the pallbearers and the firing party, and the Navy would provide the party to present the flag. And it worked out great because the Navy can only provide 2 people from the Naval ROTC unit out of Raleigh. I think it was from NC State or UNC, one of the 2 big schools there that's got Naval ROTC. So that's another thing. You've got, because like I said, you got guys that join the Marines initially and they'll get out and they'll go in the Army. Which do they get? It's really the choice of next of kin. And sometimes you'll see it where they'll want half of one and half of the other. All that's coordinated usually through the funeral director too. And there's a lot of coordination that goes on with that. And how does that happen? Do they just go to any unit on Fort, a post and pick them? No. Normally what happens is units, say at Fort Bragg, because I'm not going to speak for any other installation, because Fort Bragg I've got personal experience. You get you're on what's called green cycle or red cycle tasking, meaning your unit is going to do all the odds and ends details of the post for a given amount of weeks, and it rotates. And one of those is funeral detail. Your unit's tasked for funeral detail for the next 9 weeks. Okay. So usually about 3 weeks out, you start training your people, getting them ready, checking uniforms, because with funeral parties, it's Class A. No fatigues, Class A's. So you're checking uniforms, you're practicing, you practice it, and then while you're on it, if you don't have a funeral to go to that day or that week, you're practicing at least 2-3 times a day to make sure that your troops are squared away, their uniforms are squared away, whole 9 yards there, and keeping people trained on the proper techniques. Like I said, fold the flag, because here's the other thing. You screw up a military funeral, people are going to know. People are going to know. I had one out of my entire military career that went bad. It started when the funeral director was trying to hold me accountable for the absence of a chaplain. Chaplain is tasked separate from the funeral detail. And it snowballed from there. Because no chaplain, it was late, and we had one of those battery-powered CD players to play taps. Well, sitting in the heat, it drained. So taps started to skip. And it snowballed from there. Not my finest moment, but at the same token, not entirely my fault either. But I had to eat it, and I had to deal with it right there on the site. And needless to say, by the time I got back to Fort Bragg, I was told to be in the operations sergeant's office ASAP. And once we explained to him what happened, him and casualty assistance office on Fort Bragg had a long chat. And they got their butts reamed because they were supposed to task a chaplain, or at a minimum, they were supposed to notify the funeral home that no chaplain would be provided. So that's the other thing. If the family requests a military chaplain, all efforts are to be made to try and get one, if at all possible. Again, restraints. And what I mean by restraints is there's a finite number of chaplains that can go to these things. And if there's not one available, and the casualty assistant office on the installation that's responsible for tasking the unit to provide the funeral detail is supposed to communicate that to the funeral director, not the firing party. But there's been times where they would coordinate us to where we'd all ride together too. So, and that usually alleviated a lot of that right there. So, but I've also have done them where we did one and you'd have thought we were the third old guard when we came out of that cemetery. And as we were loading up in the van to return back to Fort Bragg, the family came over with 2 big old plates of food and said, "Take this with you. We're so thankful that you showed up, and it was an amazing job you did." And it was like, wow, okay. But that's the thing about military funerals. You're representing your branch of service, not just your unit. And there can be lasting repercussions to something that goes wrong, and there can be a memory in someone's mind that will go on forever as the best thing they ever saw. And the other thing too, you never know who's watching. I did one in Tryon, North Carolina one time, and it was just a 2-man detail because the guy was a veteran, and that was all that they were authorized. Me and a young sergeant, we went up, taps played, we fold the flag, present it next to kin, very professional, sharp manner. And as we were loading up the car, 3 gentlemen showed up. All 3 of them were Army retirees who were next to kin, and they were like, "Sorry, that was outstanding." So you never know who's watching. And I know I've kind of gone up on a tangent here, but like I said, I just want to clarify some of the things that what is actually authorized versus what people think. And it's part of it because they don't educate themselves. Part of it too, it's not really made common knowledge. So the media, we all know how truthful the media is, right? Yeah. They blow things out of proportion, and they get things wrong all the time. And I don't know how often times I've heard them, today at this military funeral, 21 gun salute. No, jackrabbit. It is a 3-gun volley. That's it. 3 volleys. I say 3 volleys, not 21 guns. So I hope I haven't bored you folks. Like I said, you can check out the article on Wikipedia on 21 gun salute. Also, Army Field Manual FM 22-5 drilling ceremonies. Okay. talks about it as well, and gives the difference between a 21 gun salute and a 3-gun volley, or 3 volleys at a military funeral. Okay, I hope that clarifies that for you. Again, every service has some different minute little traditions, but the gist of what I covered is pretty much how each branch of service will conduct a military funeral. Now, when you talk to these civilian organizations that come in, the VFW, the AMVETS, the American Legion, when they do them, they usually follow the drill and ceremony manual of a prescribed service. Most of them use the Army, but some might use the Marines drill and ceremony manual. They're all very close as far as how things are done. That's the other thing that I could get into all day long, the distance between the firing party and the casket for a full-blown, but I never participated in one that large, so I won't get into it. But that's just the gist of it, folks, and I hope people got an education out of this today and kind of get a clear understanding of what you'll see at a military funeral versus, say, a rendering of honors on Memorial Day to recognize and honor our nation's wartime dead. So, with that being said, folks, God bless. Take care. Going to get back into these things quite regularly again. If I can remember all the people I always want you to shout out to as far as charities go. Valor for Veterans. I won't even get into it because I'm drawing a brain fart today. That happens, but let me think. I haven't gone over my list in a while. Yeah, Valor for Veterans. Pin Up for Vets, that's another good one. Get Your Calendar. Those calendars are awesome. And a whole host of the others is down below. Roberts Custom Woodworking as far as vendors go. Money Quick Pawn, Rayford Road, Fayetteville, North Carolina, Unsung Patriot. And there's a whole list of others. And I'll get this all back into my memory here in the next few days. But I'll post all that in the description below, folks. Until tomorrow, God bless. Take care. It's Old Soldier out.